You're listening to the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast.
You're listening to the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast. This is the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast.
You're listening to the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast.
What smells so bad?
It's strong, but you'll get used to it. Now here's your hosts, Nick Stevenson and
buddy.
Chris Clark.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. Whatever time of day it is, wherever you may be listening in the world. Welcome to episode 18 of the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast. My name is Nick Stevenson, and I am just one of your gracious and humble hosts. You know the deal. My man Christopher Clark is on the telephone. What it do, baby?
What's up, my dude?
Hey, man. Episode 18. We are one episode away from the season finale, bro. I cannot believe it.
I know.
What a crazy ride it's been, man. As we were kind of struggling to what we were going to do next, obviously we had some plans that got messed up by the whole COVID-19 situation. Doing the guest was a great idea over the phone. We appreciate Courtney, Caitlin, everybody who joined us over the phone, and we're flexible.
Yeah, of course.
But it's a little bit difficult, to navigate. We figured let's take this opportunity, man, to give people a look behind the curtain. A lot of people ask, like, how did you start a podcast? I get questions all the time from people who are interested in doing it and just don't know where to start.
Yep.
I feel a need to help out as much as I can, because honestly, we had some friends who had started a podcast. Our good buddy, Chris Kahn, I'm going to tell you right now, if it wasn't for him and some of the information that I got from him in this process, it would have taken us a lot longer to really get moving to where we were. So I figured, why not pay that forward? Yeah. And try to help out as many people as possible. But as I started thinking about, okay, let's tell people the story or how this thing came together. It's only been 5 months. I know.
I know.
And it feels like it was forever ago.
Yeah, you're right.
But on April 24th, the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast will be 5 months old. It has been listened to 3,185 times in 7 different countries, 21 states in the United States, and Washington, D.C. as well. So 22 different areas. The biggest amount of support that we've gotten, of course, has been right here at home. When you and I decided, hey, man, let's start a podcast, I'm not going to speak for you, but I never thought we would have that much support and even come anywhere close to numbers like that.
I don't want to brag by any means, but numbers of that magnitude are very, very difficult to obtain in any kind of marketing level.
Right.
I mean, this is not my only endeavor. Is our audience, and it's very, very difficult to get numbers like that.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because this isn't even a humble brag. That's not what it is. Because honestly, I don't even know what to compare those numbers to. I just know that we exceeded our expectations.
Yes.
And,
by far.
I actually, for several months, I was obsessed with knowing, like, how well are we doing in comparison to other people. And I was talking to some people on this podcast group that we're a part of on Facebook, and they were asking about milestones. And we had just recently crossed the 3,000 listens. And I was saying, I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's more than we expected. I don't know what to compare it to. And the person who runs that forum said, hey, if it's good for you, then it's good. And I was like, you know what? She's absolutely right.
Yep.
When we started this thing, we didn't know what was going to happen. Like we said before, we thought our moms and our wives would listen, and that would be about it. And I mean, the amount of support that we've gotten in a way is surprising, just because, I mean, I don't know that many people, and we both work full-time jobs. You have 2 other endeavors. Like, this isn't something that we're doing 24/7. So right. The fact that it's grown to that amount, look, like you said, we're extremely humble, and we're going to get into it later. As good as that is, with all the humility in the world, we want more,
Of course. Yep.
And we're not going to stop and rest on our laurels because we have that much. But I mean, it's been incredible. And the biggest thing that we wanted to do, and we've said this time after time after time, is connect with people on a completely different level, on a human level.
Dude, that's something, that right there is something that I never thought, I don't want to say it was obtainable, because anything you put your mind to is obtainable. I am not used to being the forefront of something.
Right.
Anything I do, I'm the background guy.
Yeah.
I handle logistics. I handle distribution and manufacturing. Like that's my end.
Right.
With this, dude, you're front and center. Like you're the spotlight is on you.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of people that not only have I met and got to interact with, like the personal connections that have been made over these 5 months is nothing short of incredible.
Mm-hmm.
People who I thought would never, ever, ever, ever listen to a podcast messages our podcast page after every episode and says, phenomenal, great job, y'all keep it up. Like, and that's what keeps me driven, man. That's the kind of thing that I love, knowing that if it hit one person, if this stuff hit home to one person, like that's good enough for me.
For sure. And in the course of this episode, we'll talk about how we decided we were going to make that happen. And so that's why it was a no-brainer for me. I was like, let's tell the story of how we came up with the idea, how we made it happen, pull the curtain back for our fans. It'd be kind of cool for them. And then maybe if there's other people who want to start a podcast, you know, it could benefit them as well to hear what we did and how we did it. Let's do that, man. I want to go all the way back to, when did you start Falzo?
We launched February of 2019.
Okay, so that had been in the works for quite some time.
Yeah.
You fire that bad boy up in February.
Yeah.
And I had known, if we're pulling back the curtain here, obviously your wife is my wife's sister. We live about 2 minutes away from each other. You know, there was a time we'd see each other every weekend, but it's not like we're always up in each other's business. Sometimes you have stuff going on that I don't really know about, and sometimes I might have some stuff going on that you don't really know about. And
of course, yeah.
I've touched on this a little bit in the off-script episode, the very first one that I did. You know, when I found out that you were doing the air filter things, first of all, I wasn't surprised because that's what you do. You're always coming up with something. I don't know that it was a healthy jealousy, but it was like, man, like I see you fired up about something, really excited about it. And I know that that's something that's missing. Like it's something that I want to feel the exact same thing that you do.
Yeah.
You're fired up on that. And then you start dropping hints about coffee. I remember I seen you on social media, like asking who's coffee drinkers, if you're interested. And like, I know you're building up, you're lathering up for something else. And I'm like, no, this motherfucker is not about to do two different things at the same time. Man, you know? So I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? What am I doing right now? You know, Whitney, like I said, I touched on this before. Whitney had just started her new job. She's loving life. Like she's passionate about, you know, the business that she's building. And I'm sitting over here. I'm like, yo, I'm on the outside looking in, man. Like, dude, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Then we had another buddy who started a podcast. I was like, okay, now everybody's making moves right now. Like, let me stop real quick. And I think I mentioned to you in the course of regular conversation, you were on fire at the time with your setting up websites for Falzo and everything. And I'm like, yeah, man, honestly, I was thinking about starting a podcast. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And I don't think anything clicked for you in that moment when I said that. I just kind of mentioned it in passing.
It didn't. It did nothing. That light bulb didn't go off till later, and we'll get there.
Yeah. And you were like, yeah, man, that sounds kind of cool. Like you kind of like, yeah, that's cool. And this is what I'll tell everybody. Don't get mad at people if you tell them you want to do something and they don't jump up and down with you when you've probably told them you wanted to do 20 other things and didn't do shit about it.
Yeah. Yep.
You can't get mad. Like until you stand up, put your big boy pants on and go do something about the shit you say you're going to do. Don't be mad because people aren't really expecting anything. Okay.
I use this term to Haley all the time. You got to tighten your bootstraps up real tight and kick that camel on its nuts till it does something.
Yeah.
You just got to keep kicking it, man. Like, keep going.
I'll be the first person to tell everybody listening right now. I've told people I was going to do a bunch of shit. And it gets to the point where you start talking to people about it and they're like, yeah, okay, we'll see. Yeah. Call me when it happens kind of thing,
of
you
course.
know?
Yeah, of course.
But once again, I've touched on this. I had this limiting belief of all the reasons why something couldn't happen. Where am I going to get equipment? I don't have anywhere to record. How much does it cost? I don't know how to, that natural limiting belief that comes to myself that I battle all the time, it happened.
And to be honest, man, that's a concern / fear for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, that anybody who, ends up not doing something they say they're going to do falls back on that fear and or concern, like how and or why.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's say that I solve that problem and I get the equipment and I have somewhere to record. Like, who the fuck's going to want to listen to anything I have to say? Who am I? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But then, what's crazy about that is 5 minutes later, you'll be thinking to yourself, but man, I do have really good ideas. I do have some things that people are going to want to listen to. And I have some life experiences that could possibly help people. So you're battling yourself at this point. Like, what should I do? I remember, I'll never forget the day I'm sitting on the front porch smoking a cigarette and you and Haley come over. You hop out the truck. You're hype gorillaing already. And you say, dude, you still thinking about starting a podcast? And I was like, yeah, man, I'm thinking about it. I want you to tell everybody why you came to me with that idea.
Okay. So I'm just going to start off by saying that my mindset has changed throughout this podcast because I've got to meet a bunch of cool people and hear phenomenal stories throughout this, first season.
Right.
The initial reason why I wanted to do this, because once you get something off the ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once you pick it up 1 foot, the website's live, your inventory is stocked, what's the next step? People got to know about it.
Right.
You've got to be able to tell people about it. And just as well as I do, you can live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on Facebook, and you are going to be spinning your wheels in mud.
Mm-hmm.
It helps a little bit.
Yeah.
And it helps with like your close friends. But as far as like actual conversions from people visit the website to purchases, Facebook is not the way to go. Right.
Yeah.
And I start noticing this about 6 months into Falzo. We're paying for these sponsored ads, giving year supply of filters away to not only 1, 2, or 3. We did it like 5 times, man. Like trying to get people to engage. We were donating money, and I could not get the reach that I wanted to get. I mean, we would send out these posts, right? And with a year supply of filters, the only thing you got to do is like the page, comment on the post, and tag 2 people. And the post would get 20, 30,000 reaches, and we wouldn't get a single order off of it.
Yeah.
It's showing up in people's news feeds, whatever. So I start trying to think outside the box. Okay, what is other platforms that people listen to? How do people obtain information?
Right.
So my first thing is radio, right?
Mm-hmm.
I called a local radio station in the Houston area.
Yeah.
I wanted to get an ad similar to something they already run. The radio host is like, hey, my boys over at Falzo Filter Supply Company, they sell the best blah, 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 right? It's like
a live read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like this played commercial, okay? I'm going through the whole steps, the process, giving me what these guys want to say. And when they tell me how much this son of a bitch costs, I had to go home and change my boxers. I couldn't believe it. Dude, it was $11,000 for 2 runs, for 2 times on the air.
Wow.
2 times. And I was like, hold up. What? What? So I back up. Okay, that's unattainable. Like, we're a brand new startup. We've already invested a shitload of money.
Right.
Like, we got to figure something else out. I call 3 or 4 podcasts that their website says call for advertising. I give them a shout. I'm like, hey, look, I just need to know what's going to take to run a 30-second ad. The dude told me $500 for 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, there's no way. I go hit the YouTube channel. I go hit, on the iHeartRadio platform, on all these different podcast platforms. I'm looking them up, and I don't want to say they're not popular, but they're not no big dick guys.
Right.
Like, they're just your average Joe doing a podcast. I was like, $500 for 30 seconds of advertising. And then that light went off. Hold up, man. Hold the fuck up. I remember Nick said a few months ago that he was thinking about doing a podcast. Dude, that's when my gears start going. I'm like, okay. So not only am I going to get free advertising?
Right.
Okay, for both of my companies, people are going to pay me to advertise on my podcast
Right.
when it gets big enough.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where my mind was when we started.
Yeah, for sure. Chris's hair was on fire. He
It
showed
was. I'm telling you.
he showed up hype gorilla like a mofo. And so you come up to me and I'm kind of like slouched in my chair like, yeah, man, I want to do it. And you tell me about this number you hear. I've said this before. I'm like, okay, man, but it's us. Like, who's going to pay us that? Whatever. But I know that I want to do the podcast because at the time you and I had talked about a lot. We had stopped watching television. We'd stopped watching the news because we were just sick and tired of everything we were seeing on TV and couldn't listen to the AM radio shows anymore like you used to. Like,
Yeah.
it was just too much. All the politics, the drama, the shit talking back and forth. It was too much, man. And you and I were on the same page there. And you had already, since you had started your two businesses, you had already been on this positive, motivational, like, get your ass up and have a great day, make something happen. Like, you had already been on this shit because you were living it, you know?
Mindset is everything, dude.
Yes.
Mindset is fucking, I can't express that enough. Like, it took me from a place that I didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to do it. And I just told myself, like, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't you do that?
Yeah.
What's stopping you?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's where all my, like, positive, like, me and Whitney have a little joke. Like, my daily schedule is like wake up in the morning and share a post off positive vibes that nobody gives a shit about. Like, but I do. Like, that's what people.
Yeah, man.
I'm like, hell yeah,
dude. And I'm telling you,
yeah.
I needed that because I wasn't there yet. You know what's funny is because, like you said, at the beginning, we had two completely different motivations for doing this thing. Chris Krog was seeing them dollar signs in his head, rolling around like cha-ching, ching, ching, right? Which is cool, man. That's like, I've said 1,000 times, man, you're the most entrepreneurial spirited person I've ever met. You're trying to find a way to make something of yourself and to provide a legacy for yourself, for your family. And I'm all about that. There's nothing wrong with that. And for me, I just knew that I needed to find something that I was passionate about because I wasn't doing it at that point.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. The first time we have that conversation, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But I'm like, I don't know. One thing also, Chris, you've come up with a lot of ideas. Some of them stuck, some of them didn't. I didn't know how you were going to feel about it in 2 weeks,
Of course.
So I was like, let's see. That night though, I went to bed, man. I swear I couldn't fall asleep. I did like 20 different podcasts in my own head that night about stuff we could talk about. I could not sleep, dude. And I had to work the next day. I could not go to sleep. I probably started dozing off about an hour before my alarm clock went off. I could not sleep. And I woke up that morning and I was like, dude, like, we need to make this happen. If you remember, you had told me that day before, your brother, Jonathan, he has all this recording equipment because he's into music.
Yep.
And so that right there took one obstacle away at the time. I was like, wait, I don't have to worry about finding equipment. He's got microphones. He's got a mixer. He's got headphones. Okay, maybe this can happen, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, if Chris gets behind this, he's going to give it his all. If we, falls flat on his face, it's not going to be because he didn't try.
Of course.
And then I had the motivation of, like I said, I had two different friends actually who started a podcast. And I was like, I've always wanted to do that. And I just didn't do it. Why not? Like you said.
Yeah.
That was the first time I thought to myself, why not? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Now I have somebody who not only has the motivation themselves, but now I don't have to do it all by myself. I don't have to come up with the money all by myself. I don't have to come up with the content all by myself. That's when I was like, okay, we can make this happen. And I remember the first time me, you, and your brother sat on your back porch, and that was the original idea. It was going to be the three of us.
Yeah.
And we start talking about different things that we feel like we could talk about on this podcast. And what's crazy is we sat out there having a conversation for like an hour. And then when we were done, we were like, dude, that was a podcast right there. This shit's going to be easy. This is going to be easy. Let's do it. So, man, I'm like on cloud 9 at this point because I'm like, this is really going to happen. We start shooting texts back and forth about what we want to call the podcast. We're like, all the creative juices are flowing, right? And some of the honorable mentions of our podcast, I had come up with the Tripod, which I thought was clever at the time. Chris came up with water under the fridge. I was so puzzled with that, but you explained it to me later. What's that show that you like to watch? The
Trailer Park Boys.
There you go. So I was like, okay.
If you have not watched the show, like, you have to take time to watch it. It's some of the funniest shit you've ever seen in your life. But it's like 3 Canadian dudes who live in a trailer park, and like, they're always talking about retiring, and none of them have jobs. They're all like doing illegal shit and selling drugs and liquor and all kind of crazy shit. And Ricky's always fucking these things up, like, what's this water under the bridge? It's like, don't worry, Bubba, what's this water under the fridge? They're talking about doing 2 things at once. He's like, yep, getting 2 birds stoned at once.
Yeah, man. But we're throwing ideas off each other. Like, I'm getting excited. We could come up with other stuff like the Ineligible Bachelors, but that wasn't going to work because, me and you were married, but Jonathan is single. We're just trying to come up with something. And all of a sudden, it just hits me. I was like, what about Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit? And Chris sends an all-cap response like, that's it.
Fucking it.
That's it. And Booba was down with it. So I'm like, okay. Immediately, like, once we agreed that was it, I got started with a domain name, putting up the Pinecast page to be our host for the podcast. Like, I'm getting excited. As all ventures do, there comes some bumps in the road. Of course. And as time starts going and we're planning this thing out, but we're still in the early stages of just brainstorming. Your brother is a very busy man. He's a teacher. He has a lot of other ventures. He helps you with Falzo.
Well, he's actually the co-owner of Falzo and the co-owner of Fair Dinkum. Yeah, he's involved with both of them as well.
Yeah, so he's got a lot on his plate.
Yeah,
it was completely understandable at the time why he said, "Hey, I'm gonna step aside on this one."
Yeah,
it's a lot to do. I mean, I only do this and a full-time job, and it's a lot. So I can't even imagine. Yeah. But when he stepped aside, that was the moment that all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, now we don't have the equipment.
The sheet got ripped out from under us. Like, now we got to really backtrack how we're going to do this.
Exactly. And this would have been the opportunity, the moment for me and my normally negative self to be like, oh, here we go again. It's not going to work out. This always happens, blah, 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 But I had the hype gorilla in my corner. And he wasn't going to let that shit happen.
Hell no.
So I have no problem shouting out these people. You put me onto a website called Zounds.com.
Yep.
Shout out to them because they are the reason this podcast is functional right now.
Yep.
They're an awesome website and they have everything you could need to do anything with sound, music, anything. If you guys are in the process of doing either music or a podcast, I recommend them highly. So you put me on to these people. They have awesome programs where we can get the equipment that we need for not a lot of money. There's even financing available. They have good deals.
So that's one thing I do want to touch on is not only do they have financing deals available, they'll run credit. They'll finance up to like $2,000.
Yeah,
I think. Don't quote me on that. But I think it's $2,000.
Yeah. So what I actually found out recently, because I recommend them to everyone. When we're on those podcast platforms and people are looking, I always send the links. Somebody came back to me and said, hey, just so you know, they now do credit checks if you are financing for 12 months. They do not for the 6 months. So, because the last time we got equipment was several months ago. The last time you and I had ordered anything, there was no credit check. But apparently now for the 12 months, they are checking credit. But still, I mean, to be able to get your equipment and pay it off a little bit at a time with no interest, I mean, that's still badass,
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest stepping stone in starting anything is capital. How much do you have to work with? How much are you bringing to the table? And that eliminated all of it.
Yeah.
That website eliminated all of that with us. Because, I mean, we have, our equipment costs what? $1,500? Somewhere in that ballpark?
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
I mean, that's something that neither of us had to start this.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it helped out tremendously.
Absolutely, it did. So we had the place where we wanted to get our equipment. Now we had to do the research and figure out, okay, what kind of equipment do we want? And me,
That was the tough part. That was hard.
That was hard because first of all,
downplay that.
For me, like, this is way out of my expertise. Like, and now the guy who probably knows the most about it, your brother, Jonathan, he's no longer involved. So now, like, I'm like, what are we going to do? Like, how do I make sure that I have the right stuff? And once again, our buddy Chris Kahn, he did help a lot because he'd kind of gone through all of this by himself. He didn't have a Chris Kahn to help him. Like, he literally went from scratch to get his stuff started. And so I have to give him a lot of credit because I asked him a lot of questions, and a lot of what I learned about how to get this thing started came from him. I remember the day we were trying to figure out, okay, what kind of mixer do we want to use? And you sent me a YouTube video about something called the Rodecaster Pro.
Ooh,
and
buddy.
It looked like it was too simple because all the other stuff I had seen before, I mean, there was knobs and bells and whistles and lights. And
well, dude, anytime anybody looks at a piece of sound equipment, when you have a 16-channel mixer involved, like, there's 400 fucking knobs on that thing.
Exactly.
You got to know what you're doing. You have to know the ins and outs of that machine.
Mm-hmm. So you send me this video of this really simple looking piece of equipment, and I'm like, what are we gonna do with that? Like, we're keep in mind at this time, like, we thought we were going to put out a A+ level podcast from the jump. We're talking about doing video, building our own studio. Like, we're trying to be Joe Rogan day one, right?
Yeah.
That is exactly the level that we were on. So I'm looking at this piece of equipment. I'm like, that doesn't have enough buttons. Fuck if I know what the buttons actually do. I don't have enough of them. But I watched the video. It breaks down this piece of equipment. And I got to tell you, I tell everybody, the Rodecaster Pro is the best decision we made in this entire process.
Yeah, 1,000% correct.
Yes, it is user-friendly. It does everything that you need it to do. The sound quality of the microphone. Now, we didn't get Rode microphones. We got good quality microphones to plug into it. And every time people listen to this podcast, they're like, man, it sounds great. Where are you guys doing that at? Keep in mind, when we first started, we're in a living room. We're in a kitchen. We're not in the studio. That's where I'm at right now. Once we made that purchase and found out didn't even have to put anything down on it, we just made our first payment, shipped it out in 2 days. Now shit's getting real, bro. I'm like, oh my goodness. We're about to do this. Now all we got to do is build this studio, right?
Yep.
So we get started on that. I don't know about you, dude, but everybody was like, why are you building a studio? You don't have to do that. You can do a podcast with your phone.
You're right, but we ain't doing nothing fucking half-assed.
Right. And I'm going to tell you right now, Chris, when you first told me, hey, let's start a podcast, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to start tomorrow. Let me get some earbuds and my phone. And Chris is like, no. We're doing this right.
Yeah.
We're doing this right from day one.
I don't put my name on garbage. Like, we're not doing all that.
We're in June. And as a matter of fact, let's see, around August, I put out this video right here.
Hey guys, what's up? I'm Nick Stevenson, and I am the future co-host of the up-and-coming Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast. My buddy Chris, he's at work today, but I wanted to make this video because a lot of people have asked us already, hey, where's this podcast? We want to hear it. Well, we haven't begun recording yet. We're looking at about a month and a half to 2 months before we record our first episode.
Yeah. A month and a half. We gain a social media presence. We start telling people, we're taking pictures of the wall we're building. Like, we're about to put together a professional podcast, studio, production, everything in a month and a half. Yeah. Right. We're hype gorilling together now. We're on this shit. Not only are we going to do that, but we're going to have Chris run 2 other businesses and work a full-time job. And I work a full-time job as well. The building materials for the wall were not expensive. That was light work. And even putting it up wasn't very difficult. But then we realized, like, oh shit, we got to buy paint. Oh shit, we got to buy carpet. Oh shit, we got to buy soundproof. Like, all of a sudden, that bill starts getting higher, and this podcast is not making us any money. Like, we're going in the red every time we got to buy something.
Yeah.
Not to mention that, but we have families, we have children, we have our jobs. Like, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, a month and a half, because we're trying to put together a grade A podcast from the jump. Like, our first and initial product, we want it to be the final product. Yeah. No room for improvement because it's already as good as it's going to get.
Yep.
I start to get First of all, I take the Rodecaster Pro home and I start fooling with it. I'm gonna tell you right now, there's not as many buttons and knobs on it as a normal mixer, but even it took me like a month to figure out what the fuck was going on with this thing. But I dabbled with it, I played with it, and the more I did it though, like the more impatient I started to get. And I know I started getting in your ear, like maybe we don't have to do video right away. And you're like, no, man, we absolutely have to do video. We have to do video. In your experience, I think at that time, most of the podcasts you consumed, you were doing over on video on YouTube, right?
Yeah. My podcast experience, I like, even if it's just two guys talking to each other,
right?
I like to see their facial reactions and, you know, like their body language and stuff like that when they're talking.
Absolutely.
That's just my preference. For sure. And that's where I was coming with that is like, fuck no, we're putting out video. Like we're not doing nothing that is the one thing we're gonna have when we start this is the video program.
Right, exactly. And I was on board with that too, like because I was with you. Like I didn't want to put out crap, but it was starting to be obvious that it was gonna take longer than we thought to make that happen. And at the same time, we had already told 400 people who were following us on Facebook at the time, like, hey, we're doing this in a month. And all of a sudden we started getting followers and people interested. And I started getting text messages like, hey man, when you guys going to start this podcast? Like I'm sitting here posting memes on our podcast page every day because I don't have anything else to put on it, but people are wanting to consume our content. It started to get to the point where I was like, man, like, I don't know. And then I had other people in my ear like, you don't have to start a video. You don't have to build a studio. You don't have to. And I'm like, I know. But we're overachievers. That's what we do. We're coming out ham. Like, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Fooling around with the Rodecaster Pro one day. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to practice doing like a little 15-minute podcast by myself. Kind of get familiar with the mic, get familiar with the sound. I'd been fooling with the Rodecaster a lot, doing a lot of tests and a lot of sound checks and stuff. And maybe down the line we'll publish that somewhere because I find it really interesting. There's a bunch of stuff, and I had the kids help me out. Like, and when I listened back as I was preparing for this episode, it was just so funny, man. And like I said, it feels like it was 5 years ago, and it was 5 months ago that all this stuff was happening. And so, because so much has happened since then. At the intro of this show, what you guys heard was the progression of the different intros that I decided that we wanted to do. If you recall, first we were going to use the Smells Like Teen Spirit instrumental from Nirvana. I remember the first time I was bragging to someone like, we're going to use this instrumental. And they're like, oh yeah? Like, how much does that cost? And I was like, cost? They're like, yeah. Like, you're going to have to pay to use that. And I was like, no, you think so?
they're not letting us use it for free. That's for damn sure.
So I start doing the research, and I find out that there's two different licensing companies that own the rights to that music. 75% belonged to Kurt Cobain, may he rest in peace. His rights were licensed through one company, and then the rest of the band, their rights, the other 25% were licensed through another company. The first licensing company I don't realize is not Kurt Cobain's estate. That's the other guys in the band. That's their portion of it. And it's like $300 a year. And I'm like, oh, that's not that bad. And it's prorated. Like, I was like, dude, we could work that out. Until I find out that Kurt Cobain's portion is through another licensing company, and I call them, and it is $600 every 6 months. To use 30 seconds of an instrumental of a song, not even the song. So we're talking, we're talking like $1,500 a year just for 30 seconds of our podcast. And that's when we're like, okay, maybe we should just come up with something else. And so if you listen to the intro of this show, all of those previous are the Smells Like Teen Spirit intro with me using my computer with no microphone. That's why it sounds like crap. Then we switched to the Rodecaster Pro, which had its own little intro music that was programmed into it. We were legitimately thinking about using that, and we're like, that sounds corny as fuck.
Yeah.
And then I tried finding, going through Fiverr, and it was copyright free music, so I didn't have to pay for it. And I thought to myself, man, it sounds really corny for me to be introducing us. Let's find a guy to do the voiceover for us. This is one of those things that I thought was impossible. Like, how do you find a professional voiceover guy? It probably costs thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
Dude,
and
I
I was
went-
nervous about this, man. This was one part of the thing that I was like,
Yeah.
man, I don't know about that. Like,
Cause yeah, I remember I was like, I kept messaging you like, hey man, let's like get a professionally done intro. This is how I got you convinced, is because I'm like, look, man, if we want to get advertisers, we got to sound professional, right?
Yeah,
And so you
yeah.
were kind of like, I don't know. So I go on Fiverr and I find a guy, and I wish I knew his name. I want to shout out Your Imaging Guy. That is his username on Fiverr. For $40, he makes the intro and the outro that we currently have on this show.
Yep.
$40 gets you an intro and an outro, and you get one revision for each before he has to charge you again.
and see, that's what concerned me.
Right.
That's what concerned me, is because when I designed the Falzo logo, or when I had it designed, I went on this Facebook platform of these like designers who, you know, they're freelancers and they bid on it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, this one guy messaged me, and I just liked the way he was responding. He seemed friendly, he seemed nice, he seemed knowledgeable. So I'm hitting him up and talking to him, right? And I said, I have no idea what I want. All I know is I want the logo to be a circle.
Yeah.
Circle logo, and we sell air filters.
Right.
I went to his page, and the page has been up and running since like 2004, and the dude had probably 20,000 different logos and people that were tagged in these logos. I was like, okay, let me step back for a second. Maybe this is real. So I hit one of the tags of like the recent ones. I'm like, hey, did you have so-and-so design your logo? He was like, oh my God, yes, he was the best. He, you know, unlimited revisions, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But when you started talking about Fiverr, I was like, one revision? The
Right.
dude's only going to give us, if like, we don't know exactly what we want.
Exactly.
If we knew exactly what we wanted and we wanted something minute changed, fine.
Right.
But we don't know what we want.
Yeah.
And when you sent me that shit, man, I was like, bro, like that is, how
Yeah.
the hell did he do
So
that?
you're absolutely right, because you had been offered unlimited revisions for the
Yeah.
stuff that you had done. And for
Mhm.
$40, you got one revision. And if you didn't like that revision, then you'd have to charge you again to redo it.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm so thankful for this guy, and like I said, I wish I knew his name, is because instead of sending me one version of the intro and outro, he sent me two from the jump. Because only thing I told him was, I said, hey, we wanted to use Smells Like Teen Spirit. Couldn't use it because we can't afford the licensing. But we want something that sounds kind of grunge rock. That's all we know. And I told him what to say. You're listening to the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast. It's strong, but you'll get used to it. Now here's your hosts, Nick Stevenson and Chris Clark. I just typed that up, and I said, that's the only information I gave him. He sends me two versions. The first version is one that we don't end up using. And then the second version, the one that we're currently using now. Now, he sends all four of them at the same time. So I can still get a revision. But what he's done, because he could have just sent me the first one, probably knowing that I wasn't going to like it.
Yeah.
And then sent me the second one in hopes that maybe I wouldn't like that one. And then now he gets to charge me again. But this guy was straight up. He sends two different versions of an intro and an outro. It was about 5:45 in the morning. I'd been working nights when I got an email saying your delivery from Fiverr has arrived. And I'm dog tired, dude. Like, it's 5:45 in the morning. I get off at 6. It's a Monday, which is my last night. So usually by that night, I don't even remember the drive home. I'm so tired.
Yeah, of course.
I see that email and my ears perk up a little bit. And I'm like, holy shit. I opened it and I play the intro, the one that we are currently using now. And I fucking lost my shit, dude. I was in the middle of the CCR at ITC. You can ask the guys there. I was like, holy shit. I'm like, bro, I got to send this to Chris. I send it to you at like 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, dude, it's so badass. Like, he'd hit the nail on the head right away, man. I couldn't believe it. Because I was nervous too, man. I was like, I didn't want to, like I said, we're not making any money on this thing. So every dime we spend is another dime we're further in the red, you know?
Yeah.
And the dude was so fucking cool, man. I'll tell you this story as well. After we put out our first episode, so many people were like, dude, that intro was so awesome, dude. It was badass. So I emailed the guy back and I'm like, hey, man, I just want to let you know we did our first episode a few days ago. And so many people reached out to us to tell us just how awesome the intro and the outro was. And I just wanted to tell you, thank you. He reached me back, and this is a guy who done probably thousands of these, man. He had some pretty high profile podcasts that he did voiceovers on too.
Yeah.
And he says, dude, I've been doing this for almost 10 years. He's like, and nobody has ever messaged me back to say thank you. And I was like, wow, really?
I just got chills. Chills. That's crazy.
He's like, thank you so much for reaching back out to me. He's like, what's the link to your podcast, man? I'm going to go listen to it. I'm like, that's what's up. So for all we know, he might still be listening now, man. If you are, your imaging guy, whatever your real name is, thank you so much for everything you've done. This podcast would not be the same without this intro, man. Could you imagine that whack piece of shit that everybody just heard at the beginning of this show? Imagine that was the intro to our podcast. We probably wouldn't have 3,100 listeners of this shit. They would hear the first 13 seconds and be like, what the fuck is this?
Next.
Exactly. The fact that we have such a professional sounding intro, I mean, it's huge, dude. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's something that catches you immediately. I couldn't be more proud of it. Once we got that intro, I knew immediately that I wanted to get started. I was just super hyped. And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put together a little 15-minute podcast for 2 reasons. Number one, I want to get familiar with the equipment. I want to practice. Maybe I'll have to do an episode by myself here and there. Like, let's see how long I can hold a conversation with myself. I'm going to do like a little 10, 15-minute podcast. And when I first started, it just started as me talking to nobody. And as I started doing it and I was getting comfortable, I was like, in my head, in the middle of doing this thing, I'm like, dude, we're ready. So I start talking to Chris. I'm like, Chris, it's time, man. And I have a clip. I sent you this podcast. It's about 15 minutes long. I'm going to let everybody listen to what was at the end of that podcast. Chris, if you hear this, I'm ready, brother. I know you got other stuff going on. I know. And dude, you're bringing in money from your air filters, and you got a really good thing going with the nonprofit coffee company. I'm proud of you for that. And all I'm saying is that I'm never going to knock you for that. But I'm coming into this with you. I want this to be your golden goose. I want all of your ventures to succeed. I absolutely do. But the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast, I want that to be your golden goose. When you're retiring at 40 years old and you're walking off into the sunset, I want what you think back on is to be like, damn, I sure am glad I started that podcast with Nick. That's what got me here. And it's going to be, I know it's going to be all 3 of them, man. Your nonprofit, I know you're not taking on money from that, but that is a wonderful, beautiful thing that is going to bring you good karma. And I know everything that you do is going to succeed. The Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast, I'm coming for number 1 though, brother. I'm not going for 2nd or 3rd place. I want Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast to be number 1 moneymaker, number 1 golden goose for Christopher Clark and Nick Stevenson. It's going to be popping. Boy, I was gassing you up, bud.
Man, I completely forgot about that. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, man, I was gassing you up. I was ready. Because after I sent you that podcast, you called me immediately. And you said, dude, where did you record that? I was like, dude, I was in my living room. He's like, are you serious? He's like, dude, that sounded awesome.
Yep.
And I think that was the day that Chris Clark was like, you know what? I think we need to do this thing. It's time, man.
It's time.
And I think we recorded our first episode a week later. You know, we got together. We did a couple rehearsals. I wish that I had those still. I mistakenly deleted those from the computer. It was rough.
Dude, I remember sitting at that table. So just so I can like paint a picture for our audience, we do not record these live. The episode's going to drop on Sunday. Like nothing is live about it. I'm sitting at this kitchen table. The only thing different in the conversations that we have day in and fucking day out is I have a pair of headphones on my ears and I'm talking into a microphone. That's the only thing different.
Right.
And I remember 40 fucking seconds into this, you started it.
Yeah.
And you're talking, and my fucking mind turns into a fucking blank sheet of paper. Like, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I don't know how to act. Like, I'm just so...
Yeah. Chris looked like he was standing up naked in front of the entire school.
Yeah, dude. I lost it, man. And I don't know why. I don't know why my mind went there, but it was so different, man.
Dude, I'm really regretting that I don't have, because we did a rehearsal and then we tried recording the first episode And then I played it back and I was like, that was trash.
Yes. Yep. I remember that.
And then we came to my house to do it again. And we're about maybe a minute or two into it. And we're like, this isn't working. I remember I shut off the computer. I didn't shut it off. I closed the laptop. And I'm like, dude, we're thinking about this way too hard.
And we were.
Like you said,
You're right.
We do this every weekend.
Yep.
Stop trying to, I had an outline drawn out and I had points to make sure we hit, blah, 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 blah. Finally, we're like, dude, let's just sit here and have a conversation. Fucking ignore the fact that there's a laptop, that there's a mixer right here. All we're doing in this first episode is telling people how we became friends. We've probably told that story 1,000 times. Let's just tell it. And that's exactly what we did. If you go back and listen to the first episode, if you remember when we first got the Rodecaster, I practiced that introduction 1,000 times. I knew exactly what I was going to say our first episode. And it's been kind of a staple of what we do now. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, whatever time of day it is, wherever you may be listening in the world. I knew that was going to be my shit.
Yeah.
If you listen to the first episode, my introduction is so lackluster because what people don't know is it was like the 17th time I had done it in the past 2 days.
Yep.
Go back and listen to that first episode. I'm like, good morning, good afternoon. It's just so, like you can tell I was not feeling it. But that's what we did. We just relaxed. We had a conversation. If you'll recall, the next day, Maddie had banquet for her Starlights. There was a dozen people there who listened to our first episode and they were like, man, that was so cool. That was awesome. You guys are so real. You put your heart on your sleeve. You just told it out there like it was. We didn't look, I can tell you're my family and I love you. That's something that a lot of guys can't do, right? So I think they appreciated the authenticity of it and that we were just keeping it real. I never had a lackluster introduction after that day because once that first episode came out and we got the response that we did, I've been hyped to dude, I had butterflies in my stomach before we started this episode right now.
Every time. Every single time we do it, I get butterflies in my stomach.
Yeah.
Every time.
And I'm telling you, the day that goes away is the day we need to hang it up because it's the best feeling in the world, man. It's how I know that I'm invested and that it's important to me. From that point on, after we got that response, every time we do this show, the preparation that I put into it, like, it's so important to me. And I think I witnessed your motivation for doing this change as well. Yeah, we still want to get ad money.
Of course. That's not what it's turned into, though.
Yeah.
That's not, like, my mindset has completely shifted, and we're going to fucking do a podcast, and we're going to make $2,000 an episode. Looking back at it, like I said earlier, the experiences, the conversations, the people that I've met, dude, money can't buy that shit.
Yeah, for sure.
Money can't buy those bonds that have been made. Yeah. And, I love it.
Yeah. I'm going to give a shout out to one of our biggest supporters, Raquel Stewart, because she's the first person that reached out just from another level, like deep from the heart, and told me, like, I listened to you guys and, like, I was just in tears. Like, you guys are so real. Like, that was the first time I felt a real personal connection being made with someone that I had known for a long time in passing. We were acquainted. Our kids played football together, and I'd probably known her for 5 years almost. The first time I felt like we connected on a completely different level was because of this podcast, because we got on the microphone and we told our truth. And that's what we've tried to do from the beginning. Here we are, man, episode 18. There's 20 episodes in total. This will be the 21st. And we're one away from our season finale, which is going to be a recap show that we've decided that I'll go ahead and record and narrate at the same time. So you're not going to be a part of that show. But I just want to ask you, man, looking back, what do you feel like was the moment? Because I just talked about my experience with Raquel. What was the moment for you that it shifted from this is how I'm going to make money to, man, we're doing something really important?
So when it all came to light for me, dude, when my mindset changed on this whole aspect of we're going to do a podcast for advertising is when Keisha came on.
Yeah.
That to me, I'm just going to be 100% honest. When you told me that she's an author and a poet, I was like, that's cool. Like, okay, I can listen to that.
Yeah.
Dude, meeting that woman was, a highlight of this entire season for me.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
I didn't say much throughout that episode, because my jaw was on the fucking ground half the time.
Yeah.
Like I just could not believe how incredibly passionate she was about everything she did. And I was like, oh my God, like I feel you.
Yeah, you were on that level.
I feel you. Like, dude, I can't. And it's something that I would have never even thought of. Like, you write and publish your own books, and you have all these stories. Like, it's the shift manager at McDonald's. Like, who the fuck gives a shit about a job like that?
Right.
That woman does.
Yeah.
And she fucking did it 1,000 times better than anybody else probably ever will. Like, it was truly amazing.
Yeah.
And when she started spatting that poetry off the top of her head, like, it took my breath away, man. I'd never heard anything like that before. And I was just like,
for sure,
holy
man.
shit.
For sure.
And then you get Caitlin on, and then you get Courtney on, and it's like listening to these these heartfelt stories of these people actually speaking their truth and telling the world about what they're doing and the experiences they've had. Man, my mind was just blown. Like, holy shit, these people are confiding and trusting in us to use our platform to tell these stories that if that happened to me, I couldn't go and tell the world that. Like, and it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Like that's when it all came to light for me.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Holy shit, this is not just a Nick and Chris bullshitting type of thing anymore. Like, this is we're getting in depth. We're getting real emotion. Like it's
those are probably the 3 most important episodes we did. Was Keisha Speak Her Truth, Caitlin came on for Bruised Not Broken, and then just recently Courtney telling her story. Those are probably the 3 most important we've done. A really popular episode, man, going back even earlier, was episode 5 when our mothers came on, because you got to tell a pretty real and legit story about yourself. And there's still a whole bunch of people who are like, you need to tell Chris, eventually he's going to have to tell that whole story, right? Like, you kind of left them on the edge of their seat. But you guys had a moment there where you bared your soul, man, and you told a part of your life that even I didn't know. I was sitting there learning right along with everybody else. And then I did a couple of off scripts where I tried to go in a little bit deeper than we would normally do when we started the show. And, I alluded to it earlier. We wanted to have positive messaging, not talk about politics, even though we kind of did that on episode 10, but not talk about politics. And even when we did, like, we weren't arguing with one another. We wanted to try to show people, like, hey, this is how this can look.
And, that's the one thing I tell everybody I had a friend from high school. His name's Bola. Okay. Dude was a phenomenal football player when we were in high school. Haven't spoken to the guy in probably 12 years. Okay. He reached out to me, I don't know, probably a week ago, and he was like, hey, you have a podcast? I was like, yeah, man, go check it out. Gave him the link, gave him the information. He said, well, what's it about? I said, dude, it's really not about nothing.
Yeah.
I said, what we do is me and my brother-in-law come from 2 different backgrounds, we're raised 2 completely different ways, and had 2 completely different viewpoints on a lot of shit in life. And the one thing that we're trying to do and what we're trying to push is that we live in a place where it's okay to have your own opinion. We're trying to show people that when you have a conversation, you're not forcing somebody to come to your side. Yeah. You're not trying to convince them to come over. You're just saying your opinion.
Yeah.
And when it's all said and done, when the day is done, if you disagree, you fucking disagree. Like, nothing's going to change that.
Yeah.
And when you walk away from it with no anger, with no hatred, with nothing hanging over your head or hanging over their head. Like, you walk away from it and be done with it. The whole point, and we said this from day one, is to show people that we can have you can as an adult, you can have a conversation and you can say, look, this is what I believe, this is what I think. And if that person agrees with you, fantastic. If they don't agree with you, you don't call them a fucking idiot and not hear the side of the story.
Exactly.
Like, hear them out. Hear what they have to say. Like, everybody has a reasoning for something. They're not just brainwashed robots. Like, they have a reason behind it. Like, listen to it.
Yeah.
Fucking listen to it. He was like, holy shit, that's fucking incredible. Like, nobody does that.
It's true.
the controversy and the turmoil in this world is disgusting.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's what we're doing. That's the light we're trying to shed with our platform is to show people that you can have a decent conversation with different viewpoints and walk away from something, and you might learn something. Like open your fucking ears, you might learn something.
Yeah.
Your views might change a little bit.
Yeah, and I think we're successfully doing that, Chris. And that's, I was going to ask you what you were most proud of in this first season. It sounds to me like that's what it is, and it's the same for me. 9 times out of 10, we can have a conversation and never actually even discuss anything we don't agree on. And I know that would be great for, for it to be juicy and for it to be a hot take, and everybody would probably be entertained by us going back and forth at each other. But
so that's the problem with podcasts and media and Facebook nowadays is 9 times out of 10, people want that turmoil. They want that disagreeing and people fighting and bitching at each other, because that's what brings in ratings. That's what brings in, listeners to their show.
People have even asked us to do that.
and I'm sorry, we're not doing that.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
That's not we said it from jump. We're not going to sit here and belittle and berate each other.
Yeah,
we're not doing that
for sure. I'm really proud of what we have accomplished, man. Like you said it before, if only one person listened, to be honest with you, if no one listened, as I was preparing for this episode, I went back to listen to some of our content. I think most artists or anybody would tell you they don't normally like to listen back to their own stuff. For number one, you've already heard it. You were having the conversation. You know what was said. Yeah. But as I was going back and dissecting some of these episodes, man, I enjoyed listening to our content,
Yeah.
But as I went back, I can go back and listen to episode 3 where we're doing the dad jokes contest. And that shit still cracks me up. You know, I listened to the episodes with our mothers and you telling the story you told about your upbringing. My mom telling the story about her, growing into being who she truly is.
Yeah.
And even, in episode 10, we really tried hard to have a conversation that didn't get ugly, but talk about something tough. And people always said, when people listen back to that, they're like, well, you guys didn't go back and forth at each other enough. And I said, honestly, that episode was a snapshot of how we really are. I said, there was a dozen times Chris probably said something I disagreed with. And rather than go back at him, I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. He said something I don't agree with. Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Chris, you will say something that I do agree with 95% of the time. I'm not going to nitpick at that 5% that maybe you say something that I don't agree with. And, you talked about episode that Keisha came on. Caitlin, I think, was probably the most important episode that we've done. Courtney, right behind that. I mean, I don't want to say either of them was more important than the other, but, the fact that, like you said, people trust us now to come on our platform and tell their stories and tell their truth. And I mentioned this before, I every time somebody comes on, or when we were doing the small business episode and I said, hey, why don't you listen to our podcast first? Make sure this is something you want your business to be associated with, because maybe you don't. I haven't had a person come back with anything negative, because what we set out to do from the beginning, be positive, try to bring people together, show people you can come from different backgrounds and it's okay. You can still be friends. You can still be more than friends. I've said this 1,000 times. You're my family. I love you. I love your family. What we have is so much more important than anything that we might disagree about. So
of course,
that's the thing I am most proud about that we've done in this first season. And it's just the beginning, brother. We have huge plans for season 2. I hate to use the words, I'm not going to jinx it, because the last time we used the words, I'm not going to jinx it, we jinxed it.
Well, so the one thing I can say is from jump, we did not realize what all this entails.
Yes.
We did not understand and grasp the concept of building this from the ground up, putting a studio in place, getting equipment, all the things that we listed that we're going to do in 2 months.
Yeah.
Or a month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah. Most recently, we had big plans that this COVID-19 thing, threw for a loop. So we couldn't have anticipated that either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I can wholeheartedly say we're ready for the next step.
Yes.
I'll let you announce that.
Well, yeah. So in season 2, we're going to do what we originally said we were going to do, and we're going to include video in this podcast. So right now our YouTube channel doesn't get a whole lot of traffic because we post videos on YouTube with their audiograms.
Yeah.
We're going to put a camera up in Studio A, which is very near completion, 5 months later. And we're going to be doing video as well as audio. What that's going to present an opportunity for us to do. We've had people ask us about advertising. Once again, earning ad dollars is something that is on the list of things we'd like to do. Most recently, though, especially with this COVID-19 thing going on, we decided, hey, let's let people get their information out there on our podcast, through our podcast. We're not trying to make any money. We just want to, especially for the locals, like we want to do everything we can to help. Well, what video is going to give us the opportunity to do, we didn't want to risk the content being tainted because of trying to sound like salesmen. So with video, we can have a 60-inch TV above our heads while we're talking about whatever we're talking about and flash somebody's business information out there.
And it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg.
It's not going to,
That's the whole point behind that is the content is not going to be jeopardized. You're still going to have your logo or whatever in that background running.
Yeah,
I haven't worked logistics out 100%, but it's going to be like on a slideshow that flips.
Yeah, for sure.
It's gonna roll through.
Yeah, and hopefully what that'll do is the numbers that we see on the podcast listening side will translate over to the viewing side as well. I said, like our first YouTube video went up and it had like 200 views in a matter of a day or day and a half.
Yeah.
And then things kind of slowed down because I think people realized like, oh, these aren't actual videos.
Yeah.
In season 2, I've already set us up a Snapchat. Dear God. Because what I've discovered is that Facebook is not where podcast listeners gather. And I think we're going to have to be a little bit more than a podcast if we want to reach people. You know, I think these other ways of reaching out will put people on to what our podcast is doing, because I can post, hey, on Facebook, hey, listen to this podcast. And as you said, a lot of people either aren't going to see it because it's getting strangled out unless, you know, unless they can actually hear or get a recommendation from someone that they know. They may not actually click that link and come listen to what we're doing. So we're going to just try to be more visible and more present in more areas than just one. The goal is still to try to connect with as many people as possible. Like I said, man, we've gotten some type of listenership in about half the country, you know, 22 different states. We want to get the rest of them involved, man. We're humbled by the numbers, but by no means do I think like these are some astronomical, groundbreaking numbers. Like, we're hungry still.
Of course.
We want to eat. Course. We want more. And if we can just, you know, I made a post on Facebook, like, what if a couple nobodies from Texas changed the world, man? The impact that we've had on a few people, I really hope we can continue to expand and have that impact on more people.
I could not agree anymore.
And that is the number one goal for me. And I think you're on board with that. I think if we do the right thing, brother, the money's going to come eventually.
The beauty about this, man, is, like I said, initially, this was about the money. Now, it's not, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If it comes, fantastic. I'm not going to turn money down.
Right.
But that's not why we're doing this anymore.
Yeah.
That's not why I'm doing this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it's way, way, way more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm looking forward to season 2, us getting some more people in here to tell their stories, some more interesting conversations to have. I got a bunch of ideas, brother. We're going to be getting together soon. After this finale, we're taking the month of May off, and we're going to be putting our heads together and coming up with some good content for season 2. I thought the last thing we could do before I got out of here is I'd like to give the audience a little behind the scenes of some things that got put on the cutting room floor. I know everybody thinks that Nick Stevenson always comes up with great ideas, right? I'm sure everyone thinks that, right? Well, there's been a couple of times where I've had an idea and Chris was like, I don't know, bro. I want to share what originally I thought would be the introduction to the Wheel of Spirit. Check this out real quick.
Strap on your seatbelts, it's time for the wackiest game on the internet, the Wheel of Spirit.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Wheel of Spirit, the game show where anything can fucking happen. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Chris decided to trash that idea. And might I say it was a great idea, Chris. Appreciate that. Might I say that. And of course, everybody remembers, look, if we're talking to anybody who's thinking about starting a podcast, please do not drink a gallon of margaritas from El Toro before starting your podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time again. Whatever time of day it is, wherever you may be listening in the world, welcome to episode 15 of the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast.
Hey, man. Text doing them drive-through fucking margaritas.
Yeah.
Oh my God, fucking golden.
You know, we're all learning lessons along the way. The last thing that I wanted to share that got scrapped, even Chris doesn't know about this. I like to fancy myself a good impressionist.
Oh God.
I did an impression of Cat Williams once that I know you considered to be pretty good. That was what was that, episode 3?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, one day I was trying to think of a cold open to do, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to share with the world my Morgan Freeman impression. Now,
oh God.
I'm going to say this is not the best one that I did, but it's the only one that I had saved. I did one that was a little bit better, but at the end of the day, it sounds nothing like Morgan Freeman. It sounds like me trying to sound like Morgan Freeman. And I decided better of it, but I was going through all these files in my phone and I found it. I was like, okay, I'm going to let Chris hear this shit. So here's my really bad impression of Morgan Freeman. Hello, I'm Morgan Freeman. Many of you have wondered what type of podcast I like to listen to. Well, of course, I listen to the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast, the best podcast in the entire world. I know. You're wondering, what is Morgan Freeman doing in Deer Park listening to a podcast? I just could not wait to meet the hype gorilla. When the hype gorilla calls, you answer. Enjoy the show.
What the fuck?
Yeah, that was all the way on the bottom of the cutting room floor. I'm glad we thought better of that as well. I played it for my wife. She's like, yeah, no. I was like, okay, thank you.
That's fucking awesome.
Thanks to my wife for helping me decide to cut that out, man. Dude, this has been a blast. Every weekend or every Wednesday we get together. I'm looking forward to doing it. Sometimes we've stressed ourselves out trying to come up with content at the last minute, but I think what we've discovered is life brings you content, man. And
it does.
That's right. What the best episodes that we've done, to be honest with you, we kind of went into it like, not sure what's going to happen, but let's just let it go. You know, let's just have a conversation. Sure. I'm always, after we're done, I'm always like, man, I'm not sure about that. But then I edit it, I put it together, I put it out, and I can say unequivocally, man, like I am proud of the content that we put out. And I'm looking forward to doing more with you, brother. I'm looking forward to sitting directly across from you, sir, at the same table.
Shit, you're not fool. You ain't playing, dude. It's over the phone shit's for the birds. I've been saying that for fucking a month now.
Yeah. All of this stuff happened and it's all been a learning lesson. And it's all taught us something about not just this podcast, but just about ourselves, man. Being locked up in the house with your family for a month straight, that'll teach you some shit about your relationships for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And but I'm proud of us. I'm proud of our families. I'm proud of you, the Falzo, the Fair Dinkum, doing this podcast, being a full-time employee for the school district, being a full-time father, husband. Like, dude, you're doing the damn thing. I'm proud of you. I'm proud to know you. I can't think of anybody else I'd rather be doing this podcast with, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that, dude. I really do. It means a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to continue to have a good time doing it. I can't wait till I can see you in person, but I'm going to hit you up. I know you'll probably be digging up shit in your backyard while I'm working on this recap episode.
Yeah, we're digging more holes.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm going to try to pick the best moments I can think of out of what we've done over the past 5 months. It might be difficult, man. There's been a lot of good moments. Like I said, I've had a blast doing it with you. And I'm looking forward to season 2, my friend.
I know. I'm ready.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you are one of those people who have been following us since August and September, when we were promising you a podcast just a month away, thank you so much for all of your continued support. Everything that we've been talking about, all the wonderful feeling we've gotten about doing this is because of you. If no one was listening to us, if nobody was showing the support and sharing our content, having the microphones up and doing this would be pointless. But you guys have been cutting for us so hard. We appreciate it so much. Please continue to do so. Right now, you can still follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Please like, share, comment, whatever subscription that you have on whatever platform. Leave us a review, a comment. If you love it, if you hate it, we want to know how you feel about what we're doing and any suggestions you might have that you think could make this show better. This podcast is for the people and by the people. Thank you so much to all of our biggest supporters, man. I wish I could shout everybody out by name, but you know who you are. We can't show enough appreciation for that. You got anything else you want to add, Chris, before we get up out of here?
I do. So if you are interested in coming on the show and telling your story or just shooting the shit with us, we are doing all of our booking during the time we're going to take off in May.
Yes.
So if you want to come on, if you want to get on the show and talk and shoot the shit, please reach out through Messenger, Facebook, our email, all it's on our website. Reach out to us so we can get you scheduled in. And just to kind of recap on what you said, this will be my last one until season 2 because you'll be doing the recap. I just wanted to take a second and tell all of our listeners how appreciative I am of y'all's support, how much it means to us that y'all continue to support us.
Mm-hmm.
It's the ride has been nothing short of incredible.
Absolutely.
And I'm super excited for season 2.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Season 2 coming in June. We can say that with confidence. All right, man. I can't wait to get to work, brother. You give Haley and the girls my love. Hopefully we will see you sooner than later. And I'm going to...
I hope so, man.
For sure. I am going to echo that sentiment to all of you listening now. Thank you so much. I will see you next week for the season finale. In the meantime, I'm Nick Stevenson.
And I'm Chris Clark, and I will see y'all next season.
You've been listening to the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast with Nick and Chris. For more show content, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Yeah, buddy. Ooh.